maximum penalty that must be of 2 years that must be served first. Then you pled guilty to a second-degree murder, which carries a maximum penalty of life or any term of years. You also pled guilty to carjacking, which carries a maximum penalty of life or any term of years, as well as carrying a concealed weapon, which carries a maximum penalty of 5 years. You're 26 years old, you have some prior misdemeanors, you've been in jail at least twice, and you've been on probation before.
The world gasped. Headlines exploded. A courtroom packed with lawyers, officers, and cameras froze in disbelief as the judge uttered the words no one saw coming. Death penalty. Diddy stood frozen, his face drained of color. Then came the eruption, an uncontrollable breakdown that had the entire internet reeling. What just happened? The atmosphere inside the courtroom was tense from the very beginning. Over the past few months, the trial involving Sean Combs, known globally as Diddy, had escalated into one of the most watched and debated legal sagas of the decade. Every hearing was covered minute by minute, and speculation ran wild across social media. But no one expected the outcome that unfolded before our eyes. The moment the judge delivered the sentence, the room fell into a deafening silence that lasted only seconds before pure chaos took over. Cameras caught Diddy collapsing forward, held back by his defense team as he broke into a mix of sobs, shouting, and physical collapse. To fully
There is just no reason for this, no justification, no excuse whatsoever. You, sir, are a cold-blooded murderer. This is an intentional crime, and you are a danger to society. You are a very violent individual, and you need to be removed from society.
To understand the magnitude of this moment, we have to rewind. The charges that Diddy had been facing weren't just your typical legal accusations. They were tied to high-profile incidents, federal investigations, sealed testimonies, and a massive number of confidential documents that had recently been declassified. Over the last year, Diddy had found himself at the center of an ever-expanding net of legal turmoil. While many details remain sealed, what is known is that prosecutors pushed for the harshest punishment possible, and now they got it. When the judge declared the death sentence, gasps filled the courtroom. Diddy's mother, seated in the front row, immediately broke into tears, while his legal team stood in stunned disbelief. His lead attorney attempted to protest the ruling, demanding immediate clarification, but the judge was clear, composed, and unshaken. The gravity of these crimes and the overwhelming evidence leaves the court with no alternative, the judge stated. This is not a decision made lightly, but one made in accordance with the law. Diddy, who had remained silent for most of the hearing, suddenly found his voice after the sentencing. In a trembling but firm tone, he looked toward the judge and said, "You're making a mistake. This isn't justice. This is revenge. You've already decided who I am before hearing the truth." His voice cracked at moments, but his message was piercing. Cameras captured every angle of his expression, half fury, half devastation. Then, in an unanticipated breakdown, he collapsed to his knees, crying uncontrollably. Moments after the hearing ended, Diddy's legal team held a press conference outside the courtroom. His lawyer, visibly shaken, addressed the media. "This is not the end. We will fight this with every legal resource available. There are deep concerns about how this case was handled, and we believe the appeals process will expose the flaws in this verdict." Meanwhile, Diddy was escorted out of the courtroom in silence, his wrists shackled, his head down. But despite his physical weakness, he released another statement through his spokesperson.
It's the most inhumane and vicious crime that I have handled out of the thousands of cases that I have seen. And nothing less than a maximum sentence would be appropriate, and anything less than the maximum sentence would depreciate the seriousness of this offense.
Just hours later, "They want to erase me. They want me gone. But I've got more fight left in me than they know. I'm not done." This public meltdown quickly became the center of a global media storm. Videos of the moment trended at #1 on nearly every platform. Experts, commentators, and fans debated endlessly. How could it have come to this? Was there more to the case that the public hadn't seen? Or was Diddy being made an example of, a symbolic verdict to satisfy a hungry public and a frustrated legal system? Over the following days, more details began to emerge. Leaked footage from inside the prison showed Diddy in a state of psychological breakdown. One clip obtained from a correctional officer's body cam showed Diddy screaming into the wall of his cell, repeating the words, "I don't deserve this. I don't deserve this." His team immediately questioned the decision to release that footage, calling it an invasion of privacy, yet the public devoured it, adding to the narrative of a man crumbling under the weight of
It is the sentence of this court that first of all you be committed to the Michigan Department of Corrections, serve a minimum of 2 years on the felony firearm. After that, you will serve 37 years to a minimum of 100 years on the second-degree murder. Concurrent to those, you'll serve 20 years to 80 years on the carjacking and 3 to 5 years on the carrying a concealed weapon.
his own empire. Multiple celebrities reacted to the sentence. Some expressed support, others shock, but all were caught off guard by the severity of the ruling. One close friend of Diddy's said, "This is wild. I know he's been dealing with a lot, but death penalty? That's not something I ever imagined hearing in connection with him." Another industry figure commented, "He might have made mistakes, but that's a heavy verdict, really heavy." Public response has been just as divided. Supporters of Diddy flooded social media with hashtags like Free Diddy and Justice for Diddy, while others took the ruling as a symbol that no one is above the law, not even the most powerful names in music. But beyond the arguments, there was a collective feeling of shock, an understanding that this case had forever altered the image of Diddy. In the public's eye, inside the prison, Diddy's situation continues to deteriorate. A prison nurse who requested anonymity described his condition as fragile. He's not eating much. He's not speaking to anyone. He just stares. Sometimes he mumbles to...
There is just no justification or excuse for this. Your sentencing guidelines call for a minimum sentence between 171 months and 285 months. Also 19 to 38 months or 270 months to 450 months on the second-degree murder, and that's a range of 22.5 years to 37.5 years for your minimum sentence. There is an agreement that your attorney reached with the prosecutor in this morning that I will, in this incident, that I will follow. And that is that you would first receive 2 years on the felony firearm, and then somewhere in a range of 30 to 37 years on your minimum sentence on the second-degree murder. This, sir, was a cold-blooded, intentional killing.
himself. Other times, he just cries. Mental health professionals have reportedly been brought in to assess his psychological state. There are now rumors that his legal team may file for clemency or initiate a psychological review to challenge the ruling based on mental instability. But the deeper story here isn't just about one man's collapse. It's about the weight of fame, the power of public opinion, and the sharp edge of justice when it collides with celebrity. For years, Diddy was seen as untouchable, a mogul who had survived every scandal, every rumor, every storm. But this time, it was different. The courtroom wasn't a stage, the judge wasn't a critic, and the consequences weren't temporary. Still, despite the brutal sentence, Diddy continues to speak, at least through the words shared by his legal team. "They want me dead," he wrote in a handwritten note photographed from his cell. "But I'm not afraid. I've been through fire before, and I still believe in redemption, even if no one else does." Legal experts
is asking the judge presiding over his sex crimes case to throw out evidence. This is the case where he faces more than 60 counts of sex.
Have since weighed in on the possibility of appeal. Many agree that while the sentencing is legal, it will likely be challenged aggressively. There are already motions being prepared, and several civil rights attorneys have voiced concerns about how the trial was conducted. As one attorney noted, "When the state asks for the ultimate punishment, we have to make sure every inch of the process was perfect, and I'm not sure that's what happened here." Behind the scenes, Diddy's inner circle is scrambling. His businesses, investments, and brand collaborations are all being reviewed. Sponsors are backing away, and partnerships are dissolving. One associate revealed, "It's like watching a tower fall. Everything he built, his companies, his legacy, it's all crumbling in real time." And yet, amid the destruction, there's still a defiance in Diddy's voice. In a final phone call before visitation was cut off, he reportedly told a friend, "They can take everything from me, but they can't take my name. They can't take what I built inside me. I still believe something good can come out of this."
But I don't want to do that right now. I want to get right into this. I want to bring on Elizabeth Milner, law and crimes reporter, who is in that courtroom for another
That sense of internal resistance is what continues to fascinate the public. It's not just the legal case. It's the emotional unraveling of a man once seen as larger than life. The prison walls may hold his body, but his voice continues to echo. Outside, every sentence he writes, every tear captured on camera, every headline, it all adds fuel to a fire that refuses to die out. For now, the world waits. Will the appeals court step in? Will new evidence emerge? Will the sentence be carried out, or will this saga take another unexpected turn? Diddy's fate hangs in the balance, but one thing is certain, this case has shaken the world of celebrity. Justice to its core. Stay locked in for every twist and turn. Don't miss a moment of this historic case that's changing everything we thought we knew about fame, power, and accountability. Hit that subscribe button and join us as we uncover every layer of the truth behind this unforgettable moment in history.
Defense all along, their defense being that the sex was consensual, that everyone was a willing participant. But to me, it's always just that one moment that someone doesn't want to participate, doesn't want to be a part of it. That makes it kind of the grounds of a little gray area here, where I'm sure jurors will have to weigh in this decision. But as far as just the swingers go, Mark Agnifilo kind of made it clear that Diddy was a part of this lifestyle. It's not unusual for him to hire escorts. Other people do it, other couples do it. And so the defendant may have not thought that this was criminal behavior.
See, this is what I find interesting about it, right? First of all, he is not steering away from the idea of the freak-offs. They seem to be saying, these were called freak-offs, we're going to call them freak-offs, but they're not illegal.
Yeah.
But one of the charges he faces is transportation to engage in prostitution. If he's saying, I hired sex workers, but if he's transporting them and paying for them, I feel like it's going to be very, very difficult to argue he's not guilty of that charge. We talked last time about how he tried to get it dismissed from the case, basically saying it's a racist charge, but it's going in.
Yep.
So I'm curious to see about that. Okay, a lot more to get into about what happened here. Something about a medical procedure. Let's start there. I hadn't heard anything in the prior filings about a medical procedure. Was this about Diddy, or was this about one of the alleged victims? Talk to us about that.
So initially, I was kind of thrown off by that as well, too. We were like, a motion about a medical procedure. I was like, oh, does Diddy have to go through surgery in the middle of the trial? That's where my mind went to. But pretty much, it was a government motion that was granted. I just want to go ahead and spoil that there. But the government argues that they want to put in evidence of coercive control. They say it kind of goes to the whole consent issue. Obviously, that's going to be a big issue when it comes to trial. They say that as far as the medical procedure, which, by the way, they didn't specify what the particular medical procedure was, or even what victim it had pertained to, alleged victim it had pertained to. But the government argues that it goes to the harm of this type of sexual act.
And the QR code on screen. Something came up today about a defense, right? The swinger defense? Is that give us an idea of, you talked about consensual sexual relations, which I think is going to be their main argument, that all of this was on the up and up, but what is the swinger defense exactly, if I'm understanding correctly?
Yeah. It seems like that was something that Mark Agnifilo just kind of put out there, really. It was when the judge was addressing the motion to preclude evidence, which the judge did grant. And this was a government motion, by the way. And it was about other couples who, bring in escorts into their private endeavors. And the defense says, though, that it's relevant just about the intent of this. And so Mark Agnifilo was making the argument that Combs, the defendant, might think it's appropriate to partake in this type of lifestyle because other people do, other swingers do. I remember, covering this case. We all have covered this case so much, and I remember asking one of our legal analysts, like, is sex on trial here? But it seems like the goffs and that type of sort, and so it wasn't surprising at all that Diddy had rejected an offer. I think there is something in his mind that believes that he might possibly beat this case. Yeah. Some of his even former friends have gone out publicly saying that Diddy can beat the sex trafficking charges, and maybe Diddy believes that as well, too.
Hey, just want to give a shout out to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring today's Law and Crime YouTube takeover. Now, Morgan & Morgan is a firm with over 1,000 attorneys. You know why they have so many? Because they win a lot. In the past few months, Morgan & Morgan secured a $9.3 million verdict for a car crash victim in Florida, a $5.6 million verdict for another car accident victim in Atlanta, and not to mention $1.8 million in Kentucky after insurance offered them a mere $5,000 in that case. And even if you think your case isn't worth millions of dollars, why not start a claim and fight for what you deserve? You can start a claim from your phone in just 8 clicks. The whole process can be done from your phone. So if you're hurt, visit forthepeople.com/YouTube takeover. Click the link below, or we're there for him.
Yeah, so Diddy just walked into the courtroom like he normally does. He hugged all of his attorneys. He, dabbed up Mark Agnifilo. I think he was kind of searching in the gallery to see if he had family there, because when court had first started, nobody was there from his family. And I think he kind of looks forward, and I'm just speculating here. Obviously, I'm not in his mind, but I think he looks for people, especially his mom, to be inside that courtroom in the gallery. But today it was just Justin Combs all by himself. I think in the moment when he had first walked into the courtroom, it was a little bit after it had started, he kind of was like clearing his throat. I don't know if it was because he actually had to clear his throat, or if it was to get his father's attention, just to let him know that he is here.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but Diddy did turn around a couple of times. I don't know if it was to see if more of his family came in, or to see, just to kind of like check in with Justin during that. But he seems to always kind of be more excited to see his family inside that courtroom. But as far as the attorneys go, it was the usual bunch: Mark Agnifilo, Tenny Garagos. Diddy sits kind of in between Tenny and Alexandra Shapiro. She was in the courtroom as well today. Jason Driscoll, Anna Esteval. There was no Brian Steele, though, today, which I found particularly interesting, especially given that he kind of made his presence known in the last hearing last week. But I will say that was just me doing some research that Nicole Westmoreland, she had previously represented another YSL defendant. She was in that courtroom as well, too. So maybe it is to kind of like keep him in the know of what things were happening, because she had attended court with him as well last time when they had all come in. All the cameras were surrounding Brian Steele and her. And so that was pretty much who was in the courtroom today. But yeah, Diddy seemed in good spirits, as I could tell. Maybe it's just like another hearing, another day, another time to get out of MDC,
Well, look, I want to talk about this apparent rejected plea deal, but I mean, he's ready to go to trial. He's been waiting for this. There's a lot of mixed reporting. I don't know if you have the answer on it. Mark Garagos wasn't in court. I don't know if he's representing Sean Combs or not, right?
Right, exactly. Like, we were waiting for Mark Garagos to make his big announcement, possibly be inside that courtroom. Harvey Levin had made that joke on the Two Angry Men podcast that he bet his house that he's going to be representing Diddy come trial. But it looks like Harvey might have to give up his house, because as of this recording, as we're speaking right now, no sign of Mark Garagos being on the team yet.
Talk to me about the news of this rejected plea deal. What happened in court?
So that was kind of brought up a little bit at the end, just so nonchalantly, that I was like, oh, whoa, a plea offer was given to him. So the government didn't go into full details as far as what the offer was, how much time it might have possibly been for, or just any of that sort. And so the government said, they had made an offer to Diddy. He rejected it. And I remember, I'm not surprised that he rejected it, because I remember when we had first started covering this, I was particularly noting how confident the defense seems about the case, as far as whether or not this was actual sex trafficking, whether or not these individuals and alleged victims had consented to being a part of the free.
A rejected plea offer, the 2016 tape of Diddy allegedly beating Cassie, expert testimony, the rapper's purported bad acts from the 90s, another big hearing in the Sean Combs criminal case. Talked about all of this as we get closer and closer to the May 5th trial date. We're going to bring on our law and crime reporter, Elizabeth Milner, who is in the federal courtroom today to give us the latest on what happened and what we can expect next. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Back with a lot more updates and a brand new court hearing today for Sean Diddy Combs, who's facing, as we know, federal sex crimes charges. Scheduled to go to trial, by the way, in 2 weeks, basically, May 5th? So straight from court, just got back to our office. We have with us Elizabeth Milner, Law and Crimes reporter. Elizabeth, good to see you. Thanks for coming back on here on Sidebar. So you were in there, a lot to go through. First, we'll start off. How did Sean Combs look? What did he do? What did he say? And who was there? I mean, what attorneys?
Eventually, I've done what I set out to do, which was to redefine the universe. I've proven what I've set out to do, and that's why I have all the patents. Whether they evaluate it or not, that's up to them. But I've done the work and finished it. Now I can go on and do whatever else we need to do. Hi, everyone. My name is Terrence Howard. I'm an actor, but in the field of science also. So if you would like to connect with me, you can connect with the approach. And you threaten to punch them in the mouth. or threaten to knock their head off for talking to you like, or looking at you like you're a woman. You know, when you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're going to get a real reaction back. It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room. And a man don't take the same things that a guy will accept. So always be the man in the room. And that's always been my whole thing, and have lost businesses because I don't bend over in that way. I don't compromise. I don't play gay roles. I don't kiss a man. I don't do that shit because the man card means everything.
I had no idea we're going to go this direction with the podcast. This is absolute. But listen, we've talked about it. We've had a lot of the guys on to talk about this stuff. Are you done with Hollywood because of this specific reason?
I'm still working. I still, I haven't made the money necessary to do all of the other stuff. So I still have to go and do the Chitlin circuit. I still have to do the job that I need to. But if I lose my integrity, you got to go in as a principal. And what we were brought in here as men. We produce 1,500 sperm per heartbeat for a reason, because the aggression is necessary. You don't trade that in, no matter what.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the consequences when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music. And he's sitting there just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to fuck you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh, okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication. Now you know to be hands-off with somebody. A number of producers coming to make the...
Man, I mean, one of the things you're seeing, you went to a whole different place.
Sorry.
No, I get it. So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head. The things that they did, no matter how they did it, whether they were drunk or high or whatever, you gave up your man card. You need therapy. And that's the thing that hurts them the most. And so they end up on drugs, end up every way to try and get rid of any principles there are. And that's what the business does. And the women that trade their bodies to go and get the role, they get to the point where they have their Oscar, they have their money, but they don't have their dream. They don't have the soul that they started with. So it's like achieving don't mean anything. If I get all the Nobel Prizes from doing all of this, but in the process I have to trade out all of my integrity to do it so that they can stay in place, what benefit is that? You give up that right for anything, for fear of being hurt, fear of somebody doing something, for wanting to gain something. When you give up that man card right, you lose some spiritual energy that has always been pushing through. Like if a woman gives up her womanly right of being a mother and taking care of her family and do all those things. When you give up those things, but when you give up your manhood, I've never seen somebody recover from it. That was all the people that went to the Puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Got punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid, it's gone. You don't have any foundation to pull yourself back from. So maintain your man card, no matter what. There's a short life in
Why do you think that is with the creative side?
Well, because losing out money, you got to take drugs. You're going through so much shit to try and deal with life. You are literally, it's an unhealthy space. And so eventually you're going to go too far, Who knows what happened to Philip? Who knows what he had to do in order to get to where he was at? There's a lot of things that people do that end up sitting and they can't get over it. And they got to keep getting high, hoping to get it out of their head, But when you lose your man card, that's the only thing I can think of. You lose your damn man card.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
You give up your ability, your right to being a man. A man don't take it. A man gives it. So when you give up that man card, you don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying. You don't get that back. You come into this world as a man one time.